One of the biggest barriers to IVF for a lot of people is the cost. It's estimated that a cycle of IVF can cost around $12,400, and that's without the medications or genetic testing involved. So why does IVF cost so much? There are two main buckets when we look at what IVF costs and the different expenses involved. The first are the medical costs, and these include things like ultrasounds, anesthesia, surgical procedures, the actual fertilization process that happens outside of the body in a lab, the storage of embryos, and genetic testing involved to see if the developed embryos are viable. There's often a lot of other costs involved there, but those are the main ones that come to mind. The second bucket are the medications themselves. And this is where a lot of people get confused because your medical procedures typically go under your medical insurance, but your prescription medications go under your prescription insurance, and those are not the same. IVF medications are expensive because many of them are biologic medications. They're expensive to produce and to store, and they often don't stay stable for very long. So once you start using them, they don't keep. So you need to get new medications typically for each cycle of IVF you go through, and those costs can really add up. So now that we understand the two buckets of the expensive IVF, there is some variability when it comes to how much it's all going to cost. And that depends largely on whether or not you have insurance coverage and if they cover IVF. And again, you'll need to look at both your medical coverage and your pharmacy or prescription coverage. It also depends on where you live. You may not be aware that certain states within the United States mandate coverage for fertility services. Other states don't. So where you live can make a difference. And I will tell you, having worked at a fertility pharmacy, we had people who had moved to Massachusetts just to take advantage of those state mandated benefits to be able to afford IVF. And then they left after they were finished. I don't recommend that. That may not be an option for you, but I'm just saying people will go to great lengths to take advantage of the differences when it comes to state coverage. The other thing when it comes to prescription medications is that most of them are brand name only, and there aren't very many options. So you're limited in terms of what you can choose from to find a more accessible option within the prescriptions available for IVF. IVF doesn't work the first time for everyone. You may need to do several different retrieval cycles in order to get a viable, healthy egg that you can use for the next set of fertilization and implantation. And it's helpful to consider that up front when you're considering the costs of IVF. IVF isn't one size fits all, and that means the standard cost may not be your cost. So that's why it's helpful to do your research, ask questions up front, and use this knowledge as a baseline to gather information to figure out what the cost may be to you so you know what you're getting into.